start our local edition. I'm Brad Pomerance at the California State Association of Counties Convention in Palm Springs, California. We are joined by Leticia Perez. She is a supervisor in Kern County. She is about to become the first vice president of this august organization. And you have been involved for many years on criminal justice issues.
That's correct.
I want to speak about criminal justice reform. As you know, the U.S. Supreme Court about 5 years ago said California prisons were unconstitutionally overcrowded.
Right.
As a result,
a very conservative court.
That's
said
true.
that.
We got AB 109, which reassigned essentially lower level offenders to county jails. Prop 47, now 57.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about AB 109 and its impact.
California has the most aggressive criminal justice reform in the country, maybe the world. And so there are many exciting components about that. There are many controversial components of it. And a lot of folks at the local level feel it's too much, too fast. However, it's here, it's upon us.
It's funny you say that because in the 1990s, we swung so far to lock them up, throw away the key. Now we're swinging the other way where any criminal justice reform measure is passing overwhelmingly. 47 passes, 57 passes.
It's amazing to think in Kern County that Prop 57, opposed by our DA's associations, who are very respected amongst voters, that it's still passed even in Kern County, and very conservative.
And what that does for our viewers is it provides a constitutional right to parole. That's a significant statement.
Well, what we have is a system that for decades does not have any incentives for people to behave. So the larger question of why are we here? Why are we even talking about this? Why would we make things worse, so to speak, in our local communities? The reality is, with all of the measures that are in place, with a very conservative court under Scalia, we still have an increasing prison population.
So let's talk about it.
It's profoundly problematic.
There's so many layers to this.
Oh, yes.
But I want to focus on prisons versus jails. So we know that the court ruled that we were unconstitutionally overcrowded in our state prisons.
Yes.
So now we have to send lower level offenders to the county jails. What happens? The county jails get overcrowded. And then what happens? Prop 47 passes, reclassifying lower level offenses from felonies to misdemeanors. So now the county jails aren't quite as overcrowded.
That's correct.
So
ironically.
So are people serving their full sentences, but then does Prop 57 incentivize the sentences being cut?
It is very early in the process to know what is impacting what and what do we blame and how do we understand it.
Right.
So that's, in all fairness, that's the truth. However, what we know is that folks close to home, when introduced to substance abuse treatment, mental health treatment, and skills training, they do phenomenally better. The recidivism is down. So bringing folks close to home in one capacity or another is a good thing.
So that helps when you look at AB 109 because you're serving in county jail. But as you know, with Prop 47, you have these offenses being reclassified from felonies to misdemeanors, which means they're not wobblers anymore.
That's correct.
Which means the DA can't say, well, if you go to drug court, you go to drug treatment, we won't charge you as a felon. And drug courts down, rehab programs down.
You know, we have not had a lot of success in our drug programs. They were sort of situated for 100 years ago, if you will. They just were very heavy-handed. They were typical for the criminal justice system, very punitive. What we're seeing today is really our law enforcement folks, probation leading the charge and saying we've got to give incentives, provide incentives that are meaningful, and give people a reason to behave. And that is that's the most
57.
important thread. 57 is implementing a process. Imperfect, of course, all of these things have their challenges. But what we have today for the first time in a long time, since 1976, when Governor Brown first instituted, determinate sentences, what we have now is an actual incentive to behave. Stop fighting, stop hurting people, stop attacking the guards, get some treatment,
but what about
get some education.
I mean, look, 57 passed, so it's done. But the concern that when looking at parole, you only look at the underlying offense. You don't look at past offenses. You don't look at enhancements. And I guess it's ancient history, but...
I really believe parole boards are conservative in nature, and they always look at the whole picture. It's always a factor in considering a person's remorse, their serious intent to rehabilitate themselves, and their willingness and capacity really to change. So it's always part of the equation. Parole boards are going to stay appointee boards that are very focused on public safety, as they should be. The focus has to be on public
You
safety.
mentioned drugs and the ineffective nature of certain drug programs. I want to talk about one drug, and that is cannabis. Cannabis is a drug, just like alcohol is, and cannabis, just like alcohol, is now legal in the state of California.
Correct. And very unregulated.
Prop 64 passes in the state of California, 57% in every Southern California county except two, Imperial and Kern. Didn't pass in Kern County. What happened there?
You know, we are very concerned about the way in which dispensaries, the crime associated and attached to these dispensaries has rolled out. It just hasn't been a good deal in Kern County. It has to be fixed, has to be regulated. Our sheriff has to have the resources to make sure that the communities that surround these places are safe. We just haven't had a good rollout in Kern.
So Kern does have medical marijuana dispensaries, brick and mortar.
Lots of them.
So where does Kern go from here? I mean, you have how many incorporated cities?
You know, we attempted to regulate dispensaries by putting them 1,000 feet from schools.
Right.
But that, you know, we really tried to make it work. We lost in a lawsuit. We've been put back to the drawing board. So currently, we're undergoing environmental review, which is the mistake we made first go round, and we're going to come back to the table with consideration of Prop 64 and the input from the public and law enforcement, and say, you know, can we make this a fix that actually works for Kern County?
But do you want, you meaning Kern County, brick and mortar marijuana shops for recreational use, not medical use, recreational use?
I think overwhelmingly, not in the current condition that they are. There's a lot of concern with how they've rolled out. Our law enforcement's not happy about it. That makes for an unsteady environment. Moving forward, I think there are a lot of people in the community who would like to see the revenue replace some of our losses in oil. We're tens of millions down in our oil revenue. So we're at a place where if we can properly regulate, give our law enforcement the resources they need to you know, keep the community safe around these places, it can be a win-win. That remains to be seen.
In terms of regulating and taxing and revenue, you as a county and cities as well have the authority to tax marijuana sales, recreational marijuana sales. The state's going to get 15%. Some municipalities have already passed taxes in anticipation of 64 on the same ballot. What is Kern County thinking? What is Taft thinking? What is Bakersfield thinking? What is Tehachapi thinking?
I think a lot of the Central Valley counties were really waiting to see what happened with 64. We're not certain what was going to happen, but you know, did not want to make too much of a move that would indicate we're okay with drug use, essentially.
Right.
That is really the overwhelming sentiment of elected officials. Are very concerned, the message it sends, and we're really holding out till 64. 64 is here.
It's here.
It's upon us, and I think my board is ready to sit down and have the honest conversation. What do the next steps look like, and can this benefit Kern County?
Do you have a lot of unincorporated areas in Kern County?
Oh, yes.
So you're essentially the mayor, you know, each of you the mayor of those unincorporated areas, and so your land use decision on marijuana is what will be the law for those unincorporated areas. So what are you hearing?
The environmental review is the most critical piece. Kern County's ground zero on SGMA, and underground management of water.
Yeah, what about cultivation?
Can we even do this in Kern? Remains to be seen. We just voted in the process to begin the EIR, Environmental Impact Report. That'll be done September of next year. And then we're going to have a very serious heart-to-heart public policy discussion about what do we want our community to look like, where are we going to get the revenue to operate, the kind of government services, and the kind of county we want to see. Those are big questions.
Is Leticia Perez. She is the first VP of the California State Association of Counties, a supervisor from Kern County. I'm Pomerance at CSAC and Palm Springs.
Thank you.